the short run frame in economics versus the long run. The long run, all your factors of production or all your inputs can be varied. However, in the short run, some inputs cannot be varied. They are kept fixed, while others can be varied or changed. So in our example, in the first part of this chapter, to produce more sweaters. You see, to produce more sweaters. Sweaters, in their production, they use two inputs, labor and capital. The capital is assumed fixed. So if you want to increase your output of sweaters, you have to increase labor. But labor, you remember, for every factor of production there is a cost. So for labor you have to incur, or the firm has to incur, more wage. So in the short run, to produce more output, the firm must employ more wages. So to produce more output, you cannot change capital, it's fixed. So you have to increase labor, but to increase labor, this will increase wages. Therefore, this is an increase in your costs. The first concept we are going to analyze is the firm's total cost. What is total cost? It's the cost of all resources used. So if you use labor and capital, it's the cost of labor plus capital. If you use labor, capital, and land, if you use labor, capital, and entrepreneurial skills, then it's the cost of all the resources the firm is using. Total cost can be broken out into total fixed cost and total variable cost. That is, TC equals total factor cost plus total fixed cost plus total variable cost. What is total fixed cost? These are costs that are fixed to the firm, whether it's operating or it's producing output or not. For example, a firm did not start its operation, but it still has to pay for electricity. A firm did not start its operation, but it has hired a security guy, so it has to pay for him the wages. Still, the output are still zero. However, it still has to incur these fixed costs. How about the total variable cost? They are costs of the firm's variable inputs. These are variable because they change with output. For example, remember we said if your firm wants to produce more sweaters, it has to hire more labor. So if you're hiring one labor, you pay one wage. Two laborers, you pay two wages. Three labor, you pay three wages, and so on and so forth. How does the total fixed cost curve look like? It is a horizontal curve, as you can see. This is the total fixed cost. It's a horizontal curve because whether you are producing 0 sweaters, 5 sweaters, 10 sweaters, you still have to incur the same amount of fixed cost. It doesn't change with the change in output. However, the total variable cost, it increases when you are increasing output. To increase output, you have to hire more labor. So to hire more labor, you have to increase your variable costs. Here, total cost is the summation of the total fixed cost and the total variable cost. So it's higher than the TC and total fixed cost and the total variable cost. It's this blue curve, a horizontal summation of total fixed cost and total variable cost, a vertical summation of both. If we take a look at the relationship between total variable cost curve and total product curve, let's look at the total product curve. Here, one worker one worker costs you $25. 2 worker costs you $50. 3 workers costs you 75, and so on and so forth. 4 workers times 25 equals $100 per day. But the total productivity is increasing with the increase in the number of workers. How about the second concept? The second concept is the marginal cost. Marginal cost is the increase in total cost that results from a 1 unit increase in total product. Remember, whenever we find in economics the term marginal, it means the additional or the extra change incurred from 1 unit. So what a marginal cost means, what's the increase, what's the additional total cost that results from 1 unit increase in total product. That is, to produce 1 more sweater, how many more costs do we have to incur? Over the output range with increasing marginal returns, remember in the production, we have first increasing marginal returns, then the law of diminishing marginal returns sets in. So we have over marginal cost, we have, remember, the production, when you hire the first few units of labor, the first labor, second labor, third labor, here we have increasing marginal returns. However, the law of diminishing marginal returns sets in as you hire more and more workers. So here we're having increasing marginal returns. So the marginal cost, because it's the cost of production, is falling. The marginal cost is falling. And then when the law of diminishing marginal returns sets in, the marginal costs of the firm start rising. So as you can see, you can call that the MC looks like the Nike sign. Okay, the marginal cost. Why do you draw it like that? Because here there is the increasing marginal returns as you hire more and more workers at the first few units of labor, the production is increasing. So per unit of production, per sweater produced, the costs are falling. And then as you hire more and more workers, the law of diminishing marginal returns sets in, yani their productivity is decreasing, therefore the marginal costs start to become higher and higher. How about the average cost? The average cost can be derived from each of the total cost measure. So we have average fixed cost and average variable cost. Either summation is the average total cost. So we can say that ATC equals average fixed cost plus average variable cost. Total fixed cost plus total variable cost. If you divide it by the output you are producing, then you have the average cost equals the average fixed cost plus the average variable cost, and this is how we derive it, where O is the output or the quantity of output produced. The shape of the average total cost curve is U-shaped. So we have the average fixed cost, it's sloping downwards. Why? Because you keep dividing something that is fixed divided by something output, which is increasing. And first you are producing 0 sweaters, then you're producing one sweater. So the total fixed cost of electricity, for example, 50 Egyptian pounds divided by 1 sweater, then 50 divided by 2 sweaters, 50 divided by 3, 50 divided by 4, and so it keeps the average fixed cost keeps decreasing. So that's why you find that the AFC is decreasing, sloping downwards, while the average variable cost is U-shaped. First it is decreasing, then it's increasing. And also the ATC, because it's the summation of AVC and AFC, it is sloping downwards. Why is the AVC U-shaped because remember in production when I told you that in production the marginal product is first increasing and then decreasing, and it first pushes upwards the average product, then it is pulling it downwards. Here the same, but in like a mirror shape. The marginal cost looks like a Nike, like that, and it's first decreasing, and so when it's decreasing it's pulling the average variable costs downwards, and then when it's increasing it is pulling it upwards, and so this is the average cost. As you can see, this becomes U-shaped. Why? Because the marginal cost is pushing it first, or pushing it downwards and then pulling it upwards. The costs start to increase later on as output increases and the law of diminishing marginal returns sets in. Remember, the MC is Nike shaped, like a Nike sign. First it's decreasing when the law of increasing marginal returns is here, so the productivity is increasing, so the costs are decreasing, and then the MC is increasing because the law of diminishing marginal returns sets in, and as you hire more workers and as the output increases, the cost increases. The MC determines the shape of the average variable cost, so that's why the average variable cost is U-shaped, because when the marginal costs are decreasing it takes with it downwards the average costs, and then when it's increasing, when the MC is increasing, it pulls it upwards. So here the MC cuts the average variable cost at its minimum point, and the ATC, the average total cost, its shape is determined by the marginal cost. So when the marginal cost is decreasing, the ATC is decreasing, and when the marginal costs are increasing, the ATC is increasing, and so it cuts also the ATC. So as you can see that the marginal cost is cutting both the average variable cost and the average total costs at their minimum point.